Good morning. This is my second video version of my views that I think last I called. This is kind of trying to figure out and separate the noise from the news, what's important and what's not. The last one of these that I did was about 90 days ago on April the 9th. So again, today is July the 10th as I sit here and record this. And what I talked about then, and I titled it Trump, Tariffs, and Turmoil. And at that point in time, the market was getting crushed after 7 days prior on April 2nd, which was titled Liberation Day by Trump and the Trump administration. And the market did not respond favorably in that first week. And we also began to see the bond market crater. And since that point in time, I'm going to kind of summarize what's happened since then. But if I were to kind of go through that and tell you, tariff talks continued. We've had some suspensions and some deadlines that have been extended. But also there was a war that broke out between Iran and Israel. And the fact also that the Americans dropped bombs on Iran that were to stop their nuclear program, and a number of other things that have taken place. Obviously, we've seen, turmoil in like our biggest city, or one of the biggest cities in the United States, in Los Angeles, on the deportation move. And I won't go into the politics of all of that, but we've seen a lot of what we consider to be kind of chaos, at least if you look at it without kind of pulling the threads back. At least that's the way it's portrayed, I think, in the national consciousness quite a bit. But what I talked about on April the 9th was the fact that we needed to stay calm and kind of address this and let this thing play out and see if Trump and the Trump administration were on the right track of what we were trying to accomplish, which again is to bring some fairness back to what we would call the trade world, or the global free trade, which has hardly been anything but that, but to make it certainly fairer in that extent, and to also bring manufacturing and put America first, which is obviously part of the catchphrase of what Trump and the administration talk about, which I believe as well. And I think that what we've seen has been quite remarkable throughout this, because I can tell you, since the video that I dropped on April the 9th, which happened to be, at least at this point in time, the market low, the S&P 500, as we'll measure the market by that, is up a little over 26% as of the close yesterday. And the bond market, which was getting beaten up as well, is up a little under 7%. So, I mean, those numbers are quite remarkable in light of what we were being told, what the chaos looked like at the moment in time that we were looking at that. And then, also the wars and the various things that I also talked about right there. So with the backdrop of all of those things right there, that's what the U.S. stock market has done since April the 9th, since the last recording that I put out. So I'm not saying that I was responsible for turning that around by any stretch of the imagination. It just happened to be the timing of that. So I guess, be careful and stay tuned where I told you to be, calm and let this thing play out and not make any knee-jerk reactions or let emotions take over as markets get dropped. I also wouldn't get over-exuberant at this time based on the facts of what I just told you there. Because again, what else has happened on July 4th, obviously, that I didn't mention a moment ago? Donald Trump signed into law the big, beautiful bill, as it is referred to, of which, without going into any of the details on that, I think it was critical to get it done for the administration to continue to move forward and to have the opportunity to be successful. Their success remains still on their execution of all these things. There's no question about that. So again, I'm not trying to just be a rose-colored glasses, rainbows and unicorn kind of dude, but that needed to get passed. So what it did was it extended or put into law on a permanent basis the tax cuts that Trump passed in his first administration. And so it's really not a tax cut, it just sustains those right there. But had it not been passed, we would have seen a gigantic tax increase. So that was critical. They put a lot of other things that were in it to help for the deportation of things. I mean, I'm not going to go into the details of all that, but I think it was critical. Do I think we're still spending way too much money and the debt is a problem? I do. Do I think that this bill could have addressed more than that? Yes, I do think that as well. But I think those are opportunities that are still there, and that when you're trying to get legislation done, regardless of what we think about it and how we think it should be done, think about Elon Musk and Trump that's going on out there. The legislative process is as disgusting as it may be to many of us that just kind of look at it from the outside. It has to go the way that it goes to get anything done. So I think all in all, the bill is a net positive. I don't think there's any question about that. The deficit hawks and those that voted against it, even on the Republican side, they have their points that are not to be taken lightly. Again, the money being spent, we did cut in these kind of things, but again, the money being spent is still too high. So we'll get to that in another episode. But again, I think as we move forward, what we have seen is great progress over the last 90 days since I dropped a video. I think that we can be encouraged about where the United States economy, the United States as a whole is going and moving forward through this. I mean, it brings great pride to me when I talk about it. I mean, July 4th, not just because the big beautiful bill was signed into place. It's just a time to reflect upon what this country is all about and what the sacrifices that going all the way back to our founding fathers made. I mean, when they signed that Declaration of Independence and put it into play, it was, and it could have been a death sentence, and it was for many, and certainly was not only a death sentence, but their properties were taken away. They just put themselves at tremendous risk to put in place a country that is now 249 years old. It is a beautiful thing. So, stay tuned to that. I will be writing another views here in the next week or so that I should drop. It'll be in the written form. So stay tuned for that, where I'll touch upon these things a little bit more. But again, I think just stay encouraged. Know that the portfolios are working. A couple of updates along those lines. Many of you are now in the biblically responsible investment portfolios, which are performing beautifully alongside of the core portfolios. If you haven't changed, it doesn't mean that that those aren't working as well. They're working very closely. We just think that if you have a biblical worldview, that the portfolios that we now have available are just really something you want to take a look at. So if I haven't had a chance to talk to you about that individually, and you haven't made those shifts in the portfolio, which are not asset, and they're not changing the risk, they're not changing the assets that we own, the asset classes that we own, they're just changing the actual holdings that we have to align more, again, with a more biblical worldview versus just a kind of a secular worldview, I suppose, is the way to put that. So reach out to me if we haven't discussed that specifically with you and you're interested in doing that. Secondarily, I'll touch a little bit upon in the views that I write that I had a chance to go to New York at the beginning of June and go to and visit the New York Stock Exchange, a bucket list thing for me over time, which was really extraordinary to get to do. It's not many people get to do that, so it's quite an honor to have been chosen to go and get to go on the floor, see the closing bell, and spend some time up there, and just to kind of to be in the heart of the nerve center, if you will, of world and global finance. It's both Well, I'll just leave it at that. So again, I thank you. I think I want to close in saying, and perhaps I should have opened with this, let us please have our prayers, I know mine do in the firm, but all of our prayers to the B&H family that are listening to this, to the families and the children in Texas along the Guadalupe River, of the tragedy of the July 4th morning that just took the lives of many, but also to see and pray for them and keep them in our prayers, and let them find the faith that is tested in these times, but also honor and pray for those responders and those heroes that are searching for the men, the women, and mostly, or most importantly, maybe not mostly, the children that have been devastated in that. So just keep them in our prayers. And again, don't let this be a time to turn away from faith and question God. This is a time to turn to God and pray for our fellow citizens down there. It's only been about 9 months since we had a similar tragedy, in our own backyard right here, and we know and we saw how people come together in those very difficult times, and how faith draws everyone together and just plows through these things. And so just keep them in your prayers. I'll close with that, and I'll show you quickly the spot where I'm filming this from. You can kind of hear traffic in the background, but this is the place where I come for my morning prayers when I'm in Oak Ridge, which is where I'm now. And this is really the place where, going back to April 2nd of 2023, from roughly that date forward, I have come to this spot, and this is where I have found and try to find the face of God and spend time, and it's just a very spiritual and special place to me. So here's a look at that. It's just a really beautiful spot. So with that, I'll close and just say, keep the faith, and God bless America, and God bless this world.